Albrighton's for me, the English Part G song.
Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the First4LCFC podcast. It's just myself, Christian, and Edward tonight. Jamie and Austin have deserted us. So nonetheless, we'll get on with it. Ed, how are you? How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm very gracious for your correct pronunciation of my name. I think that is actually one of the first times on this podcast. But fortunately, that's because James isn't here today. So one back at you.
Yeah, well, James hasn't been with us in a few weeks now. He's a very busy man, whereas Austin's, also busy. So
to be fair, let's call him out. He's got a kid and he's looking after it instead of doing a podcast talking about a football match.
That's James, not Austin, unless Austin does have a secret child. You know, does
Weirdo. He? Yeah. Anyway, let's go. Leicester football.
Yeah, intro's done. Shockingly unscripted, obviously. But obviously we're coming at you after I don't know, what did we make of the Everton game? Anyone who's listening, I mean, it was a pretty strange one, isn't it? As a Leicester fan, I don't think I've ever watched as much of a one-sided game against 11 men, and come away feeling sort of strangely proud that we were the team dominating. But obviously then frustrated that we didn't go and get 3 points, because ultimately we had 45 minutes to get 2 goals, and certainly had enough chances to do so. So, I mean, what do you make of it ultimately?
Me? Are you addressing it? I'm wondering if you were posting this to the viewership as a rhetorical question where they can first muse on the events of last night before we get into the crux of it. But yeah, what did I think? It was a weird one, at half time when we were, let's go through it linearly. I think we dominated the start. We're looking good, creating chances. A little bit, I didn't think we'd score a ton without Vardy for obvious reasons, but we're making good movement, passing the ball, few chances, was feeling good. They score a very nice goal. But I have no concerns still.
Nice assist from Fofana as well, I thought.
Oh, come on, mate. He's young. He's doing well. Didn't let one in after that, so But yeah, even after that goal, I was like, okay, that's really annoying. But no worries. We're better than these. We're dominating, and we did. I was concerned when Ndidi got took off due to injury. I don't know if we've planned to talk about the injury or not later, but
there is no plan in this podcast. So
okay, he's
warning
injured.
Everyone listening.
He's injured, and I was worried that we wouldn't be as defensively resolute. Maybe they'd come at us a bit more, knowing that they can attack us a bit better, because indeed he's not there. But that didn't happen. We kept dominating. Good goal by Tielemans, and in the end, you've got to say only one team wanted to win the match, and away to Everton, we've come that far as a club that away to Everton is a point isn't a good result. It's crazy. Like most of my life supporting Leicester, a point away at Everton would be a great result.
Well, yeah, it's funny you should say that, because pre-match, which alarmed me, we were just edging it as favourites, which is, like you say, I don't think that's probably ever happened in history of maybe an FA Cup fixture or anything. But away at Everton, traditionally regarded as a tough fixture, but I think that's a compliment to us more than a slander on them. But what was interesting for me is that when it was 1-1, Everton suddenly started coming out and playing, and they started causing us trouble, right? So how frustrating must it be, obviously, for an Everton fan to say that? Like, why didn't they just come out? Obviously, I'm not complaining. Why didn't they come out in the second half and just look for that second goal? Because it's Ancelotti, it's sort of Mourinho tactic, isn't it? We're 1-0 up, we're going to try and defend it. Obviously, they've not conceded that many goals recently. But it's made me think, because ultimately we had no defensive responsibilities. Justin, again, I've not seen a heat map. Jamie definitely would have studied a heat map. But there was times when he was playing like a centre forward in the box. When the ball was out wide, he was the man most central. I think he almost scored, didn't he? I think Pickford just got a hand to it for once.
Here we go.
to sort of pad it away. But no, I think like we said, we were playing with no defensive responsibilities. So ultimately, we were playing a full game in their half. But this isn't an Everton podcast, but I can only help but feel aggrieved for their fans that as soon as it went 1-1, they decided to play again. They almost actually grabbed a winner at the end. So it's a bit of a strange one. But and again, another thing I want to pick up on that you said in this monologue is that we missed Vardy. Do you honestly think yesterday we missed Vardy? Is that something you think?
I was going to send a message in the group chat actually saying we play better without Vardy. But whilst that was tongue in cheek, perhaps we were linking up, and maybe big players who can be big, Tielemans, Maddison, Barnes, being all great this season, but maybe they can step up even more now they know the talisman's not there. Responsibility is on them. But I do think we missed him because I did think Perez was good, he was linking play up, but just having that person up there that he gets one chance or two chances, he's got a really good chance of scoring. Or even if he doesn't score, the defenders are always aware and thinking about him. I don't think they think the same way about Perez. So I think we missed him in the sense of how he would A, be a threat in himself, and B, draw players away, making more room for others. But that doesn't mean, I guess, that the system we played and we dominated, we didn't play badly. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a fair point because obviously on the team sheet, Perez was the striker, but for me, it felt, especially as the game went on, that we were sort of playing without a striker. And I tweeted about this straight after on the weekend sometime, I think, saying like, would we, is it unbelievable that we could just play a false nine sort of thing? It's obviously not something that we've ever trained for, but it just felt to me that if anyone was more central, it was probably Barnes. But again, it was more of a fluid sort of tactic. And like I said, I felt like James was, when the ball was out wide with Albrighton, who Everton managed to keep quiet for a lot of the game. But
could I just ask you, because I know you're mates with all the players, who's James?
James?
Yeah.
James Justin.
All right. It's just I know you're tight with Maddison and you got a lot of respect for him and stuff, but yeah. I wasn't sure which James you're on about. Continue.
Well, James Maddison, he was. To be too fair though, I think Jamie put in the group chat before this words to the value of please mention how annoying the commentary was last night. I think it was Robbie Savage and one of the BT guys. If he was watching an English stream on BT Sport,
he also put on the dinner/bedtime routine. So
yeah, you can't trust.
What do we think of him as a man?
Can't trust everything that comes out of his mouth. But no, ultimately, I didn't have a. To be fair, I wasn't really listening to the commentary. I was sort of like, I don't know what I was doing, but I was watching a match anyway. But things that stood out for me, and something that did stand out to me, because I am James Maddison's biggest critic, is that Robbie Savage said his deliveries were a bit disappointing yesterday. I mean, when he said that, I was like, is that a controversial thing to have said?
They also said one of Mark Albrighton's biggest threats is his delivery, and that he hadn't put a delivery in all afternoon. So,
but I mean, at the point of him saying that, though, he was kept pretty quiet. I think he started sort of getting a few in after that.
This isn't even a big point, but we always say Albrighton's got a really good delivery. Do you remember the last time he put in a really good delivery and we scored? Like he got an assist from anything.
Well, this is the debate, though, isn't it? Like, who's to blame if you put a good delivery in, and the person, because he was the one who delivered that ball for James Justin, and who's whose fault? Yes, I don't know. Like, all he can do is put the deliveries into the box. I mean, not here to criticise Mark Albrighton. I only ever criticise James Maddison, evidently. But no, I think maybe set pieces were a bit off it, but
To be fair, he got an assist against Chelsea, so I look like a bit of a dick now. He's got 2 in the last 4 games, so I'll shut up and not say anything.
Yeah, I think as someone who studies fantasy football, I presume that Mark Albrighton isn't on your shopping list. Although I can imagine him being, he's probably 4.5 million, so if you do need some bench fodder, maybe consider Mark Albrighton.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, but no, I think in terms of Everton, a weird match, but ultimately, like I say, I think it's pleasing to see that in the past, obviously myself or maybe a couple like you guys have maybe joined in and said that there is a bit of a lack of plan B with Brendan Rodgers, but the fact is that Everton did set up and we were still managing to sort of create chances. I don't know, like you look at a stat like goal attempts and we had 13. I don't fully know what that means, but it did feel like we weren't just passing the ball around for the sake of it. We were obviously trying to probe, and I think when Under came on, what was it, for the last 10, 15 minutes, I think he felt relatively useful. But yeah, ultimately our goal though, I mean, it is fine margins because had Pickford had longer arms or
normal arms
that work, it could have
dinosaur.
So, but then again, who knows?
I'm just looking at the quotes about Wilf Ndidi, and Roger said he had a tight hamstring. He may have overstretched. That to me would suggest it's nothing major. If he's just got a tight, maybe he misses a game or 2, but it certainly doesn't sound as bad.
Well, you've sort of built the link for me. I mean, it's not going in an order I wanted it to, but our next game is Leeds, and I know you probably disrespect Leeds and think they're useless, but the fact is they're a very attacking team, and if there's one game that we probably would want Ndidi in, it would probably be against Leeds because of the fact how fast they get men forward, right?
I don't know. I disrespect them as a team. I don't know. I'm just getting. Is it at home? Yeah, I'm not that worried. Leeds haven't been in a great run of form recently, and like you say, I don't know if I'm just standing to my principles and unwilling to change. But I don't think they're as good as people make out. I had a conversation with somebody, and they're like, "Oh, but Leeds are good," and I'm like, "No, they wear a white shirt." And they used to be a big club. That's why people think they're good.
I'm not sure what the white shirt relevance is here.
Yeah, it looks good, doesn't it? But look, in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, in the last 10 games, they've lost 6.
Well, no, I'm not disputing that, but I think if we were to agree on something even begrudgingly on your behalf, is the fact that they willingly send a hell of a lot of players forward in every attack, and you could probably say, yeah, they're a hard-working team. Then, if you want to coin a cliche, so maybe for me personally, I feel like we could be sometimes deemed vulnerable because our defensive frailties can sometimes be highlighted when there's an impetus of pressure. But obviously, we've played Leeds already once this season, and came away. Well, I think at that stage, Leeds were impressing a lot of people, weren't they, on the 2nd of November? And we ended up beating them 4-1. So
Leeds have one of the worst defensive in the league. That's what I'd be focusing on. Let me see. They've conceded 35 in 19 matches. Crystal Palace and West Brom are the 2 teams who have a worse defence. I think that's good. If anything, here's the curveball response. They're the perfect team to play. They will come at us. They're not going to sit back like Everton, and we're not got a key striker, so we might have an issue with finding that final touch to get it in, bit of quality. They're going to come at us. We're going to have pace on the counter, if and when we counter. Fast fullbacks, Barnes, Maddison, creative. Their defence is weak, over near enough 2 goals a game conceded. I'd say that's ideal. Some of the games we've struggled at home this year, perhaps because teams are respecting us more. They're sitting back more. It's harder to find space, harder to create, thus harder to score. Maybe that's one of the reasons our away form's that much better than at home. So yeah, welcome all the teams that have come at us. If anything, they are the perfect team.
I'm looking at their away record, and you'd struggle to form a correlation with. Well, you wouldn't actually. To be fair, they've lost to Spurs, Man U, and Chelsea. So scoring 3 in the process and conceding 12. So maybe they do just not do well away at bigger teams. But then again, they've shipped 4 away at Crystal Palace, and Palace has probably scored about 4 twice in the whole club's history. So there's certainly a risk. So yeah, I guess you would be looking at players like Barnes I'm probably going to highlight Barnes as a key player, because if obviously in Vardy's absence, which is guaranteed this Sunday.
Spoken with him, have you?
Just listening to what a man like Rodgers is saying, and it's yeah, man like.
Okay.
And I feel like maybe I don't know. Like Perez, he's good, but ultimately you're going to judge a striker, which is what he probably wants to be deemed as. And his goal scoring record isn't that great, is it, over the whole of his career? I mean, it probably wouldn't be fair to judge him in his time at Leicester, because he's been played out of position, he'd say. But I'm just trying to load it up whilst waffling.
Are you suggesting you would give a man like Kelechi an attempt?
No. Mate. No, I don't know actually what I was getting at, because I'd probably rather see Barnes play through the middle, but that's probably not going to happen purely because of the lack of wide options. But yeah, I'm looking at him. He came through, obviously. Well, I say obviously, Tenerife B team was his best bit of his career, 11 in 35. Then in Tenerife first team, he got 17 in 50. But then when he can really be judged, 42 in 179 at Newcastle. And now he's on 9 in 45 at Leicester. So, yeah. And obviously, he scored a hat-trick away at Southampton, though, so maybe he's overdue.
Everyone scored at Southampton.
True. So, I don't know. For me, the debate, does man like Kelechi get a sniff?
I don't know.
To be fair.
Perez had the fun, cheeky celebration, so it was hard to vote against him for that reason. But as listeners will know, I like Kelechi Iheanacho. I think it's horrible because he's come here wanting to play and develop, but he just ain't, and it's obviously stunted his growth like a teenager locked in a box. But I'd give him a bash. I would personally prefer him over Perez. I think Perez is better in sort of the Maddison role. Not that he should start above Maddison, but more so his role in the squad for me, well, once we get a winger to complete the squad, is sort of the backup guy in every attacking position. But his probably best position is sort of attacking mid, just off the main man, rather than the main man himself. I'm not sure if he's got that presence.
There you go.
That doesn't mean he's a bad player. Far from it, obviously. It just means if you're playing one up front with the team that we've got, I think we need more of a focal point in attack. And I think Kelechi adds a bit more there.
There you go. So it's an exclusive. Kelechi over Perez.
Well, who's got the better record?
Another question. I presume Kelechi Iheanacho, when he...
Is that typing, Googling Kelechi Iheanacho?
Yeah.
Did you not have these stats up beforehand?
No. I'm looking at him. He's got 981 at Leicester, so he's already worse off than Perez.
Yeah, last season in all competitions, Iheanacho got 10 in 26. That is a good record. And in his whole time at Leicester, Perez has got 10 in 55. So what does that mean? Who knows?
I'm just reading his Wikipedia reliably, and apparently he blew up the 2013 FIFA Under-17 World Cup, and then it led to interest from teams such as Arsenal, Sporting Lisbon and Porto, but he actually ended up going to Man City. Whereas record wasn't that bad, but he was notoriously obviously a super sub, 12 and 46. But yeah, I agree. He obviously came to Leicester thinking he was, well, surely going to get more game time. But
who would you start against Leeds then up front? Would you make a change because he didn't score, or did we just dominate that well? Maybe keep the same side, and on another day we would have won by maybe a couple of goals.
I feel like it's not going to be the same side because I feel like indeed they won't risk him. Do you think? I think that's a fair assumption, actually.
So you'd have Mendy start. Obviously, that if we really want to segue, that then means Chowdhury might be on the bench again. Which, if indeed he's out for a while, it's sort of been murmurs going around a while that Chowdhury is going to be off, going to be sold perhaps to Newcastle this window. Now with only just a couple of days left, if indeed he is out, even if it's for just 2-3 weeks, it seems unwise to sell Chowdhury as well. Especially now if we sell Chowdhury, we've got no Chowdhury, we've got no Pratt, and we've got no Ndidi. So after Mendy, I literally don't know off the top of my head who's our next centre mid.
Chuck Dan Amati in there for a run out.
I'd rather not.
I'm looking at the squad, and well, yeah, you are right. It's obviously Chowdhury, really. Obviously the first sub if Mendy was.
I have to recall your guy on loan at Luton.
Yeah,
Dewsbury Hall.
Dewsbury Hall, who obviously played against Chelsea. I didn't watch that Luton match, but well, that's it. I can't really add anything to that. Anyone who did watch it, maybe he played well, maybe he didn't. I didn't really see anything about him afterwards either. So, but yeah, I don't know actually. Maybe he doesn't even have a recall thing in his little contract. But looking at it, you've obviously mentioned transfers. So yeah, Chowdhury, take that off the table, I think would be a sensible suggestion, even though Newcastle fans or segments of the Newcastle social media following thought it was almost as good as a done deal, which it might have been, but there's nothing stopping us from pulling out, obviously, after seeing Ndidi hobble off last night. But the one player who we're probably more confident, which is under the radar, but in leaving, it looks like Gray, who's really not really featured at all this season, and when he has, he's flat to deceive. So, yeah, Bayer Leverkusen. It seems like I won't say a step up, but certainly a very good sort of club to be joining, right? I mean, so what do you think they see in him that we haven't seen?
I think a lot of German clubs see things that a lot of our teams don't see in players, in terms of they seem a lot more willing to give youth a chance. And I know he's not super young anymore, but as you've seen recently from the British mega clubs, a lot of the youth players are leaving because they just don't see value in playing for the under 23s anymore. So they go over to Germany and they get loads of game times. Think of players like Sancho, who's gone from pretty much a no one at Man City to, linked with like £100 million moves to Man U. Jude Bellingham, who had one season playing at Birmingham City and now is a regular starter in the Champions League. If you actually look in the squads now, I use the Flash Score app for following football in other countries, and there's an increasing amount of English young players playing in Germany that have just been signed from Arsenal, Man City, Man U youth systems, because they just don't see a route anymore to the first team, and they're going to get minutes. So is Gray going to get minutes? He's not going to be given the leeway that these players have. That's one thing, because it's one thing an 18-year-old coming in and taking a while to get used to it. The pace. Demarai Gray's not 18 anymore. He's 24. Like, he needs to start proving his stuff. But, Bayer Leverkusen are a big club. Historically, I assume they're playing European football. It's a great move to him. I personally wouldn't have seen something like this coming.
Well, his goal scoring record is atrocious. It's 13 and 169 appearances, which is over the course of 5 years now. He joined in January 2016 for $3.5 million, one of Ranieri's signings. So, you're looking at 3.5 million, and that's next to nothing. I'm not going to be frivolous, but in this day and age, it's as good as a free transfer, really.
All right, big man.
You're not gonna see it as a loss. Obviously, wages and outgoings of that. But I think above all else, he has just been a disappointment, and maybe it's his attitude as well. I don't know if that's. I think you do this as well. You sort of see a player's face, and maybe he just constantly looks unhappy, but he just doesn't seem like he's giving it his all. So.
I also think with Gray, one of the big stats is people like to draw up. He has had a stupid amount of sub appearances, so perhaps those stats don't show the full picture. But maybe we just had too high expectations. Could be
maybe
one
a goal
thing.
Minute would be a better stat. I definitely can't access that right now.
Maybe also we've just progressed more than we probably thought we would. Where Demarai Gray. He was great for the England under-21s, and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he turns a corner in Germany. He gets more game time. It's a good league. It's probably not as competitive Premier League, but it's certainly not like playing in France or somewhere. So he's going to have to work hard to even get a look in. But when he does, I think he can turn a corner, and who knows, maybe it'll come good. But we're making judgments on players like the attitude thing. I also have no evidence to support this, but I'm surprised. He doesn't seem like the guy who'd want to go abroad. I thought he'd rather just stay in the Premier League, both for like pay reasons. He'll probably get more here, but also just like he's going to have to learn a new language. Can you imagine him having like German lessons?
I can't imagine that, but I'm looking at Bayer Leverkusen. They are currently third in the Bundesliga.
Big boy stuff.
Above Dortmund, who are seventh. I mean, if you're going to pick out random teams, but I'm just looking at their starting lineup because naturally I'm going to know exactly a lot about their wingers.
We were linked. If you want to see some progression here,
they've got that Bailey there as well, haven't they?
Do you remember when we were linked with that Chilean player the year we won the Premier League, Charles Aranguez or something like that? And he signed for Bayer Leverkusen above us. And now we're pieing off our fifth choice winger to them. So there's a bit of progression for you.
Yeah, so who's the real winner? But no, I think at one point I thought he was going to say that Gray's got a chance of going to the Euros with England if he needs to get there a good run. So I think you get handsome odds on that. But I think
too soon, lads.
I think the winger debate at England levels. There's quite a few people. I think you'd have to have a big half of the season. But no, I'm just looking at Bayer Leverkusen. If they're still in Europe, I feel they're in the Europa League.
They've just signed Timothy Fosu-Mensah, so there will be someone he can speak English to.
Well, like I said, they've got that Leon Bailey, who's a Jamaican, but I presume he speaks English.
They've got Dragoev, not Dragoev. How do you spell it? Dragovic, yeah. Who we had on loan.
What is the national language of Jamaica?
Don't know.
Exactly.
English.
No, they've got your favourite team in the Europa League as well.
You're making me crazy. What?
Oh, come on. That impromptu. That's why it's unscripted. But no, they're playing young boys.
Have you seen any other links to players that you're interested in? I've seen, but not the most reliable source, but we've been linked with a move for Todd Cantwell.
I feel like he's just the ever-escent. He's going to be that championship player who's just forever linked with Premier League clubs until he's like 31, and then he'll be, he's actually 31. We don't want him anymore. Maybe. That's my. But I think Norwich, I don't know what they're doing. I think they're very basically going to win the championship, so he'll probably be in the Premier League one way or another.
Edouard has popped up again as a name. Seems to be always, but it's unlikely. If we were to sign someone, I don't think we're going to spunk a load of money now with just a few days and it come out of nowhere.
Just look, well, I don't know. The Perez thing did, ironically, at the time our record transfer, but
is that in January?
I don't think so. No, it wasn't. I think he signed late on in pre-season. But I was going to say something. Annoyingly, now I've forgotten. But no, actually, yeah, it was never going to happen. But obviously, there was all this link with like Christian Eriksen, and maybe we did put like an inquiry in and whatever. And obviously, 300 grand wages is never going to happen. But I'm struggling to see why. And Rodgers on record said that that's a position he wants to strengthen, which left me sort of scratching my head, really. So I'm not really. I don't know. Do you see that were we lacking creativity? I don't know. You got Maddison and Tielemans to name but two, obviously predominantly central players who are fine. And then if you're going to bring someone of Eriksen's stature in, then that's three really good creative players.
Can you ever have too much?
Too many cooks spoiled.
As an actress said to a bishop. What the problem is? What if one of these players gets injured? You know, Maddison injured. Yeah, say he's out. In our current situation, then what happens?
Yeah, but I'm saying you weren't ever going to bring in Eriksen, as hypothetically speaking, as a bench warmer.
I think. Well, we also still starting Albrighton, so.
Yeah,
he's done well.
Albrighton start above Eriksen.
Albrighton's for me like the English Park Ji-sung. He just tries hard, doesn't he? And he just loves it.
Well, that is an interesting. Have you ever heard anyone compare Albrighton to Park Ji-sung? That's this week's hot topic.
Yeah, but we do need him to get replaced because he just tries hard and he's good at that. But let's be honest, he wouldn't be starting for Man City.
I'm picturing it. I think he'd stand out a bit like a sore thumb. A bit too direct, maybe, for the old Pep Guardiola. I think he'd get a bit frustrated, constantly just hoofing the ball forwards or delivering sumptuous crosses into the box. But no, maybe it's unfair. But I do feel like he is the one player, maybe Kasper Schmeichel as well, but I feel he's been a bit more sort of efficient with his ball playing. But I feel Albright's still stuck in like 2015, just like Route 1. That's all he thinks. Anywhere on the pitch, let's just do something with it straight away. But I don't know. I still feel he's got a valuable, he's valuable over egging it, but a role to play in the team, but maybe more of a purely because he's been there and done it in the title-winning season. Because I don't know, like, do you see him as like a role model, or is he? I still see him as more of a traditional wide man, like someone like David Beckham, and I just don't feel that's how wide men play anymore, is it? Like you don't compare him to someone like Raheem Sterling, do you? I think you got to sort of almost beat a man and do something with it yourself nowadays to be sort of fashionable.
Well, it's a nice comparison. Do you think Albrighton is like David Beckham?
He's the best deliverer of a ball England's seen since David Beckham, isn't he?
I agree with your point, though. Now we're playing this possession-based game. You need wingers who can turn it up a notch if required, and he will sprint and he will do whatever he can to get there, but he gets there a little bit too slowly. So yeah, someone with a trick. He's like more of a efficient player. He's been great this season. I thought he'd been completely outcast of the squad. May even have left by now. But he's
not actually that old, isn't he? I think we said this on another podcast. Like, I'm only going to guess before I do start typing, but is he 31?
Good age.
He's 31. That is ridiculous. He's like, I feel like he should be about 38. So, yeah, I feel like I've just gone down a rabbit hole with that point. But it suggests, I don't know how long he's got left on his contract, but he ain't going to be disappearing out of the professional game anytime soon.
No, I agree. To be fair, with this transfer window, if it wasn't for the injury to Ndidi, I wouldn't really even be doing anything. The only place in our squad that I would like another player right now is to replace him. Not because he's been awful, because since he's come into the team again, we've been starting to play better, and he's put in a shift as always. But one little worldy winger, and like then you're struggling to find issues with the team when everyone's fit, and even when people aren't fit, like the goalkeeping situation's fine, backup keeper's decent, defence is fine, lots of strength in depth at centre back and full back. Tillemans, Ndidi, Mendy, Pratt, that's fine. And then you're just looking at the top of the pitch, though. But then you're never going to get those worldy players high tariff in January. So it's just like, what is there to do? Let's just keep going what we do and keep everyone fit. And let's try and work on adding to that in the summer. That would be my plan.
Well, yes, subject to the season, fingers crossed, ending on time and no delays due to COVID or anything. And then obviously, but again, it's a tournament summer, so in terms, well, I guess a lot. Well, I know some fair actually, quite a few of our players might be actually featuring in the Euros now, but ultimately, as a manager, there would be more time to scout. I feel like last summer it felt like there really wasn't a break. So not many moves were made, but I guess traditionally speaking, summertime will be the time to bring and strengthen, hopefully for a Champions League campaign. But obviously, let's not preempt anything or play the Champions League theme music.
Or sing it.
Well, apparently no one sang it, so that's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of it. I feel like this podcast with no script, we've already sort of previewed Leeds. I think we're both getting at the fact that it's going to be, which I'm not going to go convincing win. I think we can score though. I think I'd like us to keep clean sheet though, so maybe I will just go convincing 3-0. Are you as optimistic or not? Shockingly enough,
2-0 for me, purely because not got the firepower as your normal, but yeah,
2-0. That'll be a quiet day in the office for Leeds. Shipping goals, but but no, I think obviously you always have any other business, so I'm not even going to try and start wrapping this up because I feel like it's probably going to be at least another 10 minutes with you asking irrelevant questions.
No, I don't really have much business. What are you laughing at?
Business. Great scene in In-Betweeners.
Okay, that's a bit, let's keep it friendly for the kids.
Actually, did I not voice clip that in the first ever First4LCFC podcast?
Yeah, you did. It was...
And the avid listeners, I know there's people like Richard Enriquez.
Well, one thing I'll add then, now that you've mentioned avid listeners, just so
not British,
it's not just us talking like off on random things. For those who really enjoy the podcast and like the stupid stuff we say, first, you're a weirdo. Second, are there any features or anything you'd be interested in us having more, like whether we have, I don't know, more emphasis on our prediction league? Do you want to have some like quizzes against each other? Do you want to ask us more questions about topics? Quick fire answers you want from us, like anything you want that we can add to make it a little bit more interesting rather than just us going off on a whim about stupid stuff. Always open to suggestions.
I've got a suggestion, and one that you made off air just before we started recording, is that you can come on and confidently do a solo episode. So does anyone still listening at this stage feel like Ed could blag? And he said he'd do it without a script. Could he confidently speak for at least half an hour?
I think I do that most episodes anyway. And then in my monologues, no, I said I can talk. I don't think anyone. I think I'd find it hilarious. I think about 1% of the viewership would listenership, but everyone else would think I'm an absolute freak and won't listen again. So if there's a big enough want for it, maybe that could be a future episode. I can share the inner workings of my mind. But yeah, but in more seriousness, if there's anything you'd like us to add to this podcast, to improve it at all, any advice on any feedback at all, feel free to share on our @First4LC Twitter. We'd like to hear what you think.
Fantastic. There you go. That's a very sensible suggestion from you. That's
I just want to make it we enjoy making it, because for us it's just doing a stupid chat with mates about something we're really interested in. But it's easy to forget sometimes that actually other people are also listening, and people might not get things we're talking about, our sense of humor, like the actual background content to the jokes or whatever. We want to make it good for you as well, so let us know.
That is true. To be fair, well, it's not ironic at all, but interestingly, I'm not a big podcast listener myself. I don't think I was trying to think desperately now, but I don't subscribe to any podcasts. So, I mean, do you listen? I presume you strike me as more of a podcast listener.
When I go flying on a plane, I listen to podcasts.
Just setting.
That's the only thing I do, because I want to I want to forget that I'm on a plane, because they scare me. If you really want to know. So I listen to them. I like political podcasts. I like the political commentary. Ooh. I must be honest, I'm quite boring like that. I don't really listen to any jokey ones or football related ones, which is again why some feedback would be good. There could be some really popular formats that to you guys you'd obviously know about, but we don't know much about it. So if there's anything you've seen other people do that you think's decent and we could have a crack at it or do something similar with our own little spin, let us know.
There you go. I second that, and hopefully we'll get some feedback. I trust that whilst we do joke, there are people who do listen to the end of this podcast. So thank you again for your continued support. Obviously, please like it, share it. I don't know what you can even do with a podcast, to be fair, but whatever you can do, something positive. Listen to it. Yeah, above all else, listen to it. But no, we'll be back at some point next week, hopefully early next week, reviewing the Leeds game and previewing, I think is it Fulham after that? Who knows? But yes, anyway, thank you for listening, and we shall speak to you soon.